I met the Lord. Got a new way of speaking, new way of teaching, new way of preaching since I met the Lord.
Hi, this is Jane Hoffman with Political Gravity. Tonight's show, we have a special guest, Daniel Cendejaz from Southern California, who's second-generation Mexican. Before I bring the callers in, I want to review some information. The Trump administration announced in April that they would prosecute not only illegals crossing the border, but asylum seekers. They would be breaking constitutional conditions that allow asylum seekers to seek refugee status in the United States, either due through war, crime, drug trafficking, their lives being threatened. In 2010, several Haitians came to America after the earthquake and the outbreak of cholera. Tonight's topic is going to do with a lot of different things. It's going to do with misconceptions about Mexican and Spanish settlement and immigration in the United States. In the Spanish country founded California in the 1500s. They established missions and set up missions all over the state. They were the first founders as a European nation for the west coast of the United States. Up until the Spanish Civil War, that was the dominant culture in California. Now, Fareed Zakara had a guest on GPS Sunday in which she mentioned that different levels and waves of civilization, as Samuel Huntington speaks about in his book. There were Spanish that settled here between 1500 and 1700 in California, New Mexico, and other parts. They speak Old Spanish as far as traditional Spanish, and they were, as Ann Coulter calls, settlers. They were founding Americans even before many of the Midwest and Western states were established. So for Donald Trump to divide a lot of the native populations, especially people of color, Latin and other countries, as illegals or descendants of illegals, is really a certain kind of prejudice that really is not predicated on historical information that he's lacking. The other problem is with these, there's different groups that have been here 3 to 4 different generations, And also, for the people who are relatively new, who have been settled here 10 to 30 years, resettling in America and assimilating and integrating is not always an easy process. The same author named Linda, I didn't catch her last name, on GPS yesterday said, integration is tough for a stratified population that doesn't always offer opportunities equally across all different groups. So the suicide rate is up for people who have resettled here within the last 20 or 30 years. And just because you cross the border, it's not always an instant path to freedom and excitement and opportunities. Now, in 1980, Ronald Reagan he said another word for illegal immigration is willingness to work. And both him and George W. Bush were welcome to have people come here, not just as migrant seasonal workers, but George Bush, the second one, twice gave a moratorium on seasonal workers and people coming in the country. He honored them and gave them a condition that they could stay as long as their work was eligible. With that, I'm going to bring in the callers, and I'm just going to mention one more thing. When Samuel Huntington was talking about waves of civilization, like everybody knows that there's been border clashes along the southern border for hundreds of years, but the Spanish used to be a vital dominant force, just like the French were and the English. They controlled land, they fought for land, and they tried to defend land. They were just as strong a European nation as the whiter populations, and I'm not trying to stir up controversy by saying that. Once America was solidified by around 1850, things still were not in perfect order because there was the Civil War, and then there were other states in the Mid-South, like Kansas and Oklahoma, vying for whether they should be a free or a slave state. So basically, our country has really only been legally bound within the last 160 years, and still we find conflict between civilizations and perceptions that radically change every 10 years. With that, I'll bring in the co-hosts. We have Wade on the line and Daniel, but I'm going to be interviewing Daniel first because he's our special guest tonight. Hi, Daniel. How are you doing?
How's it going, Jay? Just finished dinner.
Hi, Wade. Thanks for joining us. I'm going to be interviewing Daniel first. How are you doing tonight, Wade?
I'm doing great.
Okay, Daniel. I have a few leading questions for you, and then you can just go into what your perception is and what I just said. My first question is that I know in the past when we worked together, you wrote a family history, and that you kind of spoke about your struggles between, you know, how your mom and dad got here, how they met, and what the beginning of their journey was in America. And I'm not even really sure if they're first generation. I just assume that based on what you told me in the past. Could you kind of relay a little bit about your family history and what you see those struggles are?
My grandparents actually came here before my parents. My dad's father actually came as a bracero, I think back in the 50s. And then my mom's father came, I think, in the 60s. So they would come, you know, and they would come to work, you know, and go back to Mexico like a lot of people used to do back in the day. My parents are the ones who permanently settled here, but initially when they came, the mindset was the same thing, you know, come and work for a little bit and then, you know, go back home and you know, live where they grew up. But you know, they had kids. Yeah, they had us, and you know, even up until I was like about 5 years old, my dad still planned on going back to Mexico. But he saw that we were going to school, you know, and picking up the language, and you know, we were American citizens, you know, so he saw that in his eyes, you know, going back was not the best idea. nor in the best interest of his children. So, he ended up staying here. And 31 years later, here I am, with my own child now. But yeah, that's pretty much the journey of my family and how they got here.
And when your parents decided to settle here, were they able to work legally Were they able to work legally, or did they just pick up odd jobs, or did they matriculate into like a permanent job?
When my father came, because he came before my mom, because my dad is 6 years older than my mom. He came when he was 17, and obviously he didn't have a green card or anything. So he came. He did come illegally here, So what he did is he basically did, basic jobs. He worked as a dishwasher at a bakery. But the man that he is, he didn't want to settle with that. He wanted to move up, and he had the opportunity to actually bake cookies in that same bakery, because one of the other bakers or whatever, they were going on vacation. So, within a couple of weeks, he was actually doing that, and soon enough, he became a full-on baker, and he's been doing that for over almost 40 years now.
Cool.
So yeah, so he's still a baker. Had no intentions of doing that, but his mindset was, I want to move up and make the most amount of money I can, so I could, provide for my family. And my mom, when she came, she
go ahead.
She worked in the hotel business for a couple of years, and then she got married. And then my dad, was very traditional, and he's, basically wanted to be the breadwinner in the family, and my mom was able to raise us. So, that's pretty much how it happened.
Great. And the only reason I asked you the personal part is because I kind of want you to tie it in with my other question. So I know that you went on to become the first college graduate in your family, and that was a big honor for you. And then you also went into writing and rap music. But how do you feel from your I'm going to ask you one more personal question, then tie it into social and cultural context. How did you feel after you became a college graduate? Did that empower you, or was it just like a personal feat of accomplishment that you could do for yourself?
Well, obviously, education was very important for my parents, even though my parents didn't have a formal education. My dad only went up to the 6th grade, and my mom only went up to the 4th grade. But at a young age, I was told that education was the key to success. So, with that said, I still didn't really know the ropes or how to do it. And, I graduated from San Fernando High School and had the opportunity to receive some money and some scholarships. And when I attended Cal State University of Northridge and graduated, it was definitely an honor. It was an accomplishment. But those first couple of years, though, I graduated during a time where the economic crisis was happening, so it was pretty rough. Just in the last couple of 5 years.
Was that around 2008?
It was actually 2010. So it was I guess in the midst of it, not the beginning of it, but I was just trying to find my way, and it was rough because, like I said, no one had ever done it in my family, no one had ever graduated, so I didn't really know what to do. I didn't have any. My networking skills were not the best. But like I said, now I got my little family now, and I would say I'm pretty well off. Yeah, thank you. But yeah, that's how it went.
Just one last personal question before I go into the next set. Where do you work these days?
I actually work in South Central for a community center. It's called a place called Home. I've been there for almost 6 years now. Essentially, what I do is have the opportunity to teach there. So it's like an after-school program, but we offer a number of resources. Sorry, I'm in the educational services department, and I'm able to teach pretty much, what I know and what I like, and so
cool.
Yeah, that's what I'm doing now. Yeah.
So do you have afternoon hours? Because I noticed you told me you work 10:30 to 7. Like, do you do from 10:30 to 2? Do you do prep time?
Pretty much. Right now in the summer, we're pretty much, busy all day because we got the kids from 8 a.m. all the way to 6:30.
Wow, that's incredible.
Yeah. Yeah,
So
during the summer
they
they're in there
really
all day.
stay there the whole time, or do they just come and go?
Some of them are there the whole day. Some of them are, come for just for the classes. Because, I mean, obviously they're not in classes all day, but the time that they are in classes, it's in the afternoon. But
So my next question is it's not just the hype of the media the last 2 months, but do you think Trump is, because Jeff Sessions said that some of these people seeking asylum have the legal right to do so and won't be kicked out, but Trump, through his tweets and differentiations, like last week he called people crossing the border an infestation. I haven't really touched base with you for 2 or 3 years, and since Trump was elected, I want to know how you view the climate of the country, and also could you parallel that to your families, your parents, and your situation? Do you feel any side effects, or do you just ignore it because you don't consider Trump a valuable source?
I mean, he's definitely not a valuable source. I mean, but I think, like you said, I've known him for a very long time, and I've been politically active for a very long time. But unfortunately, because of that, this is not something. His sentiments are not something new. I've pretty much heard it all my life. Whether it's him or other people. I mean, but I feel like.
Do you think people? Like I'm one of your friends who is not Latino, but do you have other black and white friends? You hear sayings from people in the streets saying I know Los Angeles is one of the most diversified places on earth, but do you get a sentiment in Southern California that people are resisting Trump as a whole, or do you ever get the redneck side of the story, like people white people feel like they're being invaded by other cultures?
I mean, not here in Los Angeles so much. I mean, I don't really hear it. I think if you go to Orange County, though, I mean, you'll have that crowd of Trump supporters who, I think for a long time probably I felt that way, but I mean, didn't feel safe to come out. And now that you have somebody in office who, does not care, what comes out of his mouth. I mean, essentially, they feel safe to be able to express themselves in that way. But I mean, I remember going to rallies and protests. You always had the Minutemen, and people like that who have always been present. But I mean, I think because people feel, I think folks like that, like you said, rednecks or whatever you want to call them, I mean, feel the need to. I think a lot of them they come from a place.
I mean, I know you can't really see it regionally, but Trump was just up here in a Duluth rally, and just the way that he defines and clarifies things is kind of, he creates the division through his words. Oh,
for sure, yeah. That's definitely a fact, yeah.
The other thing is we do have a caller on the line from St. Louis. I think he's a regular caller. But the last thing I want to ask you before I start letting the co-host talk is, do you think by 2020 there's going to be immigration is going to be a central issue, or do you think the Bernie Sanders movement is going to get regenerated, or what do you foresee in the next 2 years being like the major issues of our country? Because right now the economy is, most states have a 3 or 4% unemployment rate, so the economy is good. So what do you think the problem's going to be that people want to tackle?
I mean, for as long as I've been alive, and even before that, I think immigration has always been an issue. Like you said, you went back and talked about, how California was founded and whatnot. So I mean, as long as it's not fixed, I mean, I think it's always going to be an issue, honestly. And as long as people are willing to hire people, I mean, people are going to come over here, regardless of how much they get paid. So unless we have some kind of system where, people are not exploited, at the same time, people are able to come here without, quote unquote, breaking the law. I mean, we're always going to have this issue, honestly.
I bet you your grandparents felt a certain kind of freedom being able to freely come and go as seasonal migrant workers, or even as semi-permanent workers. They must have felt that experience, that they didn't feel fearful or intimidated if they needed to leave.
Oh yeah, I mean, absolutely. I mean, even my father who came here in the 70s, I mean, he talks about, you know, he didn't really have to jump any fences. I mean, I know now you have these huge, you know, they're not the wall, I guess, but I mean, you still have some kind of walls. And he talked about how back then it was a lot easier to come in, even if you were not documented, you know, like to come in like that. I mean, it was not.
I had a friend who walked across the border just with his shoes, and he ended up starting his own business, his own painting business, contracting business. He had a huge 18-passenger van, and he literally came over with absolutely nothing, knowing nobody. So with that, I'm going to pull in. You can stay on the line. I know you just got off a long day, but could you stay on the line about 10 or 15 or 20 more minutes just to talk to these other people?
Sure.
Okay. Wade, I'll let you talk to. I'll let you ask a few questions. Who do we have on the line from St. Louis?
Well, this is Bianchi.
Oh, hi,
How
Bianchi.
are you doing?
We're great. Thanks for calling the show back. I have my friend Daniel on the phone. We've been friends a long time. We work together in San Fernando. He's a second generation, or practically third generation Mexican, first college graduate in his family. I invited him on the show because there's a lot of major issues going on right now with the border and the separation of families, and Trump administration not delaying asylum seekers in Nogales, Mexico, and other places from coming in, where in the past that hasn't been the case. I know that you're a conservative, so I'm sure you have something to say about it.
Yeah, I'm an African American. What's his name, Dan?
Daniel Cendejaz, yes.
Yeah, nice to meet you, Daniel.
He's also a rapper, a musician, and an educator.
I'm a supporter, and I voted for Donald Trump. I voted for him.
We know that. I remember you saying that.
Yeah, I was going to tell Daniel. And I kind of despise that I hear people only claim that whites voted for Trump, whereas there's a contingent of black supporters here in the United States, too. But, you know, the issue on immigration, we're for illegal immigration. It's just the illegal immigration. And these asylum seekers, you know, there's a lot of prosperous things that's going on in the three northern triangles, Guatemala, Honduras, and El Salvador. You know, you go on YouTube and you can see all the events, the malls, the water parks, and the parades and cultural events, markets that's going on. My question is this. The people that's in these countries, why come they don't have the concern about the less fortunate in the country like Americans do?
You mean the people coming in don't have concern?
No, the people that's there, because quite all children are not trying to leave the country. There's this there, and you can see them on YouTube and other media outlets, that they're going about living their life. Children are going to school, going to parades, and having the same type of life that you would expect for them to have. Why come this group, that segment of the population, don't have the concerns for those that, quote unquote, just less fortunate? And shouldn't they seek amnesty, or should they seek refuge in the adjacent countries? Why drive the entire length of Mexico going past cities like Acapulco, Guadalajara, Monterrey, and other cities, and not stopping there, but just to come into?
Southern cities in Mexico have absorbed Central American refugees, because the problem is about 2 months ago, Trump sent some people down there to stop the caravans from coming further north. So they have no choice but to settle in some of the southern Mexican cities.
Yes. You got British Honduras, Nicaragua, Costa Rica, San Jose, or Panama. And should they not seek asylum application in the U.S. Embassy in those cities, especially Panama? There's a military base there. And
I'm not sure. I know some of them probably don't even make it all the way to the U.S. I don't have the percentages in front of me. It's not as bad as it was during the bloody wars of the mid-'80s, where both El Salvador and Honduras and Nicaragua had major wars. How
Real
about
quick, and I'm
Donald
going to get
Trump's
off.
zero policy towards migrants and refugees, though? Sessions said immigrants can go to the ports of entry if they want to claim asylum, and they won't be arrested. But the fact of the matter is, a lot of these refugees have been prosecuted and their families separated.
Well, I'm sure they separated if the parent or the guardian is wanted. You know, the same thing happened to American citizens also. If you're driving down the street and you pull over and they run a check, well, they're going to take you to jail and they're going to put your kids in custody. Your kids don't go to jail with you. That's been a practice in the United States for ages.
That's true if you've committed a major crime. Wade or Daniel, do you have any comments?
Just just to clarify, what are some of the questions? I mean, I hear a lot of things going on. I mean, so your issue is with why aren't people
well, look, my question is this, Dan. Yeah, why don't they apply for asylum in those adjacent countries, or even Panama, where they have military installations? Applying for asylum is filling out a form and paying a fee, and they can have their review of their near loved ones, their family, their culture, their food, and so on, so on, so on.
That's a great question. I mean, you know, there's actually folks, like Jane said, who actually do go to those countries, but, you know, a lot of folks who live in these countries, you know, they hear about the American dream. So for them, I mean, even though it's, you know, many miles away from their home country, I mean, to them, they feel like it's easier, you know, to get that there. Because, I mean, for a long time, I know El Salvador and I'm not sure if Guatemala had it as well. They had asylum, you know, because of the civil wars. So it was easy access. As a matter of fact, you know, when I was in college, I had a research project on why, you know, Salvadorans had easier access to the U.S. as opposed to Mexicans because, I mean, they were actually given direct flights from El Salvador all the way to San Francisco. So it was easier for them for a long time to do that. You know, at the same time, though, I mean, even if they wanted to go to these countries, I think what a lot of folks don't know is that, you know, even though Latinos speak a common language, there's still a lot of differences between them. And for the most part, you know, this is going back to the days of the colonial system in these countries, is that they don't get along. You know, so I mean, a lot of these countries also don't allow people to go into the country.
Right,
you know,
they might not also have immunizations like the United States does, and
exactly.
Like they might have health problems because they're warmer countries. Like there's more problems. Like, you know, like in, I'm not comparing it because I don't know, but West Africa has a malaria problem. But I know like places like in Belize and stuff, you know, you can get more medical problems because of the warmer climate.
Yeah, and the other thing, why don't the national airlines of those countries fly the people back that's being put out? Why is it left up to Americans to foot these bills? I mean, there's one cost after the other, and it seems like it's
well, they're not even willing to keep them alive, so why would they fly them back? Like, in some of those countries, Penanki, you know, gangs rule. The government has no legitimacy. You know, like,
and that's another thing.
Even in Mexico, they said in Mexico in the last 5 months, over 40 people running for office were shot, and 2 were shot dead while they were posing for pictures with their constituents. So I'm not talking about Central America right now, but there's a lot of countries aren't safe. And
how is it that street gangs
system and die?
Yeah, how is it that street gangs succumb a national army? In Cape Verde, by 2010, they finally expelled the drug cartels and drug lords that was using Cape Verde as a stopover for drugs coming out of Colombia going into the Netherlands and Germany. With their little resources, they was able to do this. And maybe they should subscribe to the methods that Cape Verde done in order to alleviate their problem.
I think the issue is not so much that they can't do it as that they're not willing to do it, because a lot of the times, you know, you have, like James said, you have people who actually want to get rid of the gangs, but, you know, a lot of these gangs, you know, or cartels have so much money that, you know, they are the government. So they basically run the country, you know. And then you have folks who want to change that, and what happens is that, you know, they either get murdered or are not supported. You know, I mean, Latin America has had many revolutions and civil wars to change, you know, these things that are, you know, cause inequalities in the countries. And every time that happens, you know, I mean, it's usually stopped. And as a matter of fact, you know, the civil wars of the 70s and the 80s in El Salvador and Guatemala and Nicaragua, the U.S. supported the conservative governments, you know. So essentially, you know, that contributed to the people coming to the United States because the U.S. actually was opposing people, you know, who wanted to change the country, you know, because they wanted to protect the interest of the companies they had in these countries, you know. So
yeah, I remember
people
that.
have tried it for a long time.
Reagan backed the wrong horse when the Sandinistas were fighting.
Yep.
Reagan backed the wrong people. Hey, by the way, did you guys know in Guatemala in the 50s and 60s, the United Fruit Company enslaved the Guatemalans and only paid them 50 cents a day and maxed out on $1 billion banana industry.
Mm-hmm.
And they
the Bushes was
killed
behind that company.
Eisenhower and the military staged a fake coup and lied to the American public, and for years the United Fruit Company enslaved the Guatemalans. It was their bananas, and they didn't get any profit from it. In fact, some were killed for rebelling against it.
Yep.
Well, we got to come up with a solution, and hopefully that it's a fair solution. But I don't think that Americans, you know, we gave $267 million to El Salvador in 2016, $168 million to Honduras, and about $100 million to Guatemala. And I think that
where did the money go?
That's right. If the money is not being used like it should, I think it has to stop. I don't know what to say. Should we invade the country with the United States Marines and hunt these troublemakers down? Do you think that is a solution?
Well, what they could do is instead of spending $100 million, they could go maybe establish some kind of industry that could help people. And you know, maybe there should be some kind of physical presence there without it seeming militaristic.
I mean, honestly, like I said, I think the only way, I mean, not the only way, but one of the ways to stop, you know, immigration, you know, illegal immigration, whatever, is, you know, if these countries want to change, I mean, you know, like instead of backing up the government who wants to protect the interests of the U.S., I mean, you know, in those countries, really it's U.S. companies, it's not even the U.S. government, it's U.S. companies. You know, if they were to back up, you know, the people, I mean, you know, they would have support from them, you know, and therefore wouldn't have to come over here. People don't come over here because they want to come over here. They feel the need to come over here, you know what I mean? Like I said, I mean, my family, when it came here, their thought was, okay, there wasn't, you know, I want to stay here forever. They wanted to come to work, you know, and just go back and live where they're from. I mean, but like unfortunately, you know, like going back was not an option because I mean, the situation was so bad. I mean, not in that way, but I mean, economically, I mean, my parents are from a village. You know, you don't have much there. You know, either.
Well, how is it that these other kids are surviving? That's there now.
I'm sorry.
We see them all
over
the news.
Are you talking about on the border in the like the areas that they have cordoned off for people to just wait?
Well, I see. I guess you would call it an urban area. Of course, you got your rural areas, but why come these people aren't being attacked? The malls, the stores, the McDonald's, the Burger Kings, the Brinks trucks, and all those.
Are you talking about in Mexico or the United States?
No, they're in Guatemala, Honduras, and El Salvador. There's YouTube clips on all these activities going on.
Well, I heard a clip on the news today that the mass immigration on the southern border is about a third of what it was in the 80s. Like, I don't care how much the mainstream media hypes it, that the influx of people is not nearly as high as it was 30 years ago. And one person accused the Trump administration of magnifying the issue versus they compared it to like when everybody was against the Iraqi war when George Bush was in office. And then the minute Obama got elected, the war movement kind of just fizzled and nobody heard about it anymore. Like, how big is this problem is what I'm trying to say. Is it really big? Or is it only big because we're focusing on it right now?
Maybe that's the question. That's the answer. Look, you guys carry on. I really appreciate your your show. And Daniel, I hope you have all success.
You too, man. Thank you.
Are you leaving?
I'm going to put myself on mute and continue to listen.
Well, Wade, Wade, we haven't heard from you all night. What's up with you,
Sure.
Wade?
Well, yeah, I'm listening and
Daniel,
learning.
wait, let me introduce you first. Daniel, I used to live with Wade from 2002 to 2004.
Okay.
He's a USC graduate. He majored in theater, I believe, and he worked in Korea as a professor and teacher for 9 years.
Okay.
So I was just wondering what you thought about the conversation, Wade.
Oh, yeah, I was listening and trying to learn. I'm trying to be aware of what's going on and hear all the perspectives and stuff. And one of the things I suggested to Jane was I had wanted to know what was really going on, and I know somebody who is an ICE agent. So I had called him last week and talked to him. I do. I know someone.
Uh-huh.
And I'm not allowed to, it has to be an anonymous source because, they have legal restriction to, they can't, that's why we don't hear from them because they can't.
You can just tell us what he said without identifying him.
Sure. Well, like you mentioned, things get, things get blown out of proportion, and I think on both sides, the news creates a lot of drama and tries to get attention to things. And he gave me a different picture of what's going on.
I told you that I was gonna have.
Can you kind of fill me in a little?
Sure. Well, they're trying not to separate families. What's happening is, for a while, Trump had the policy of arresting people coming across the border.
Right.
And so
they arrest them right away, no matter what their reason is.
Right, and then people can claim asylum, but then that takes a while. And while the parents are being held in custody, they can't hold the children with the adults. Which
What's
is like,
the reason
I don't
for
know
that?
why.
Is it a safety issue?
I don't know.
Daniel,
that goes way back.
Daniel, do you have to go?
I'm sorry. Yeah, I have to go. Sorry.
Okay, that's okay.
Okay.
You can hang up. I'm going to call you in a couple days to touch base. Okay?
Okay. All right. Bye.
Okay. Bye-bye.
Right, nice hearing you.
Thanks for joining us.
All right.
Thanks for joining us. Yeah, go ahead, Wade.
Well, one of the things is, that's why they were getting temporarily separated, but they aren't permanently separating the families. Well, one of the things is like basically, that's
is there a worry though? Like let's say they put a 7-year-old in Building C, and then the parents are stuck in another detention center for 2 months. Is there a chance that they might lose track of that child?
There's always a chance. That's a scary thing, and you remember I worked in the foster center, and kids would run off. Kids would escape, and
I don't remember you working in the foster center. Was that when you were substitute teaching?
That was just before I started substitute teaching. That was that was before I met you, wasn't it? I did work in a foster center, and
it's probably when you lived with Skylar.
Yeah, but but they are documenting these people. That's part of what my contact, his job was to make sure that these people, that the documents or some kind of attaching identification or something. So they're definitely trying not to do that. He said that a lot of the kids are coming without parents, and that's the problem.
I did read that today, that the parents are allowing the risk for their children to cross alone, but I read in the article that it's not a guarantee that the kids can stay.
Yeah, and to be fair, and I'm not saying, I'm never, I don't know, I don't get really emotional about Trump one way or the other.
It's okay. You've been pretty neutral on the subject.
Yeah, but to be fair, I mean, I do think a lot of the news is going to take whatever they can against him, whatever they can, and so just imagine if the situation were different, right? So they're worried about the children and parents being held separately. Well, if the kids were being held with the parents, you'd hear all over the news, oh my goodness, they're jailing children. That would be a big outcry
CNN
too.
always takes a negative approach to Trump no matter what. And if he does do something good, they diffuse it right away.
Yeah,
I have a tendency the Al Jazeera and BBC is a lot more reliable when it comes to any kind of news.
Okay, that's good to hear. And that's why, I contacted this person. Unfortunately, I can't say. I hate to not have a clear reference, because then it's just not as legitimate a case. But I'll have to just tell you what I can.
We trust you, and so does the audience.
Appreciate it. I mean, I wouldn't tell anyone to totally trust me, because never trust somebody that says trust me, right? But this contact, because they're not allowed to be sharing what's going on. So anonymous, but one of the things, he said that a lot of kids are coming over without their parents, and that's a lot of the case of the ones that they have that they're looking after. Excuse me, and that he says the kids are not being kept in cages. That's some drama that's not true. There is
pictures though. I saw a couple pictures.
A couple things were okay. There was one picture going around that was actually from a protest, and as like this symbolic thing, they had their kids in this cage and were taking photos of them holding up signs, and it was a symbolic thing, and it was part of a protest. And then the pictures got around, and it got out that these were the kids in cages under Trump, and that wasn't the case. Now there is a big holding area that's fenced in, and I mean, like, that's the way the law is. I would love to see a world where there were open borders, but in pretty much any country that's not the case. And if that law is going to be enforced, then people come over, and while they're here, you don't just let them out, or they're going to go into the country, and which is what happens actually. They say, okay, here's a court date, come back, and people don't come back. I mean, of course they're not going to. But pretty much like any other country in the world, you would get, I think, maybe in Asia, I think you'd get in more trouble. Places I've been, if you just came in illegally.
Well, one week we did talk about. John mentioned, like, what would it be like if we tried to go into another country without the proper channels?
Oh gosh, I mean, my experience.
If we just decided, like, we were just going to take up residence in Poland or Germany or Hungary or Norway. Norway and Sweden would probably be cool about it.
Some parts of Europe they're being pretty open border with the EU and all that, but and I know when I went to Italy, we didn't even have to go through immigration. They just had a table that was like, okay, stamp your passport here. So we thought that was pretty cool. Like, wow, just stamp your passport.
Like what year was that? Wait, what year was that?
2015. It was went there for the World Expo.
Are you serious?
Yeah.
Yeah, I think it was last week or the week before. It was just me and John, and we were talking about how both Italy and France, these Libyan refugees came across the Mediterranean to try to be settled in France. But there's like a no man's land between Italy and France, and they're stuck there. They've been stuck there for 3 months, and neither country will take them. So I think it just depends on who you are. Since you were an American, you didn't get any shit. But if you were coming from a North African war, then if you were Somalian or Libyan or Sudanese, you wouldn't get
Yeah.
a fair shake.
Well, I mean, it's really because I came in on an airplane, and so they're not checking. They're not checking people who fly in so much as people who come up on the shore on a boat.
One thing I want to mention, John might be calling in soon, and John, I'm not sure, but I'm not going to try to make the show go past an hour and 15 minutes tonight. But my question is the southern border of the U.S. and Mexico is very large. But there is the Gulf of Mexico, so it doesn't affect Mississippi and Alabama, but it goes all the way from eastern Texas to the farthest western point in California. And for years it was so easy for people to get through. And even when they created barricades, there were underground tunnels. So you hear about it all the time. We don't really hardly ever hear about the northern border of Canada, like how people try to sneak through and if it's possible. So I just think that it becomes a target in a sense, and since I know there are established industries in Mexico that the U.S. has established, and there were people who were working for good companies for years in certain parts of Mexico, but the other issue, which it's not in a negative way, but Mexico has a huge population, and each family has 4 to 5 kids. And only those people who really feel like they can't sustain a family there, those are the type of people who come over and try to do better for themselves. It's not always war. It's sometimes just economic. So it's an ongoing issue. And I think the reason people are mad nowadays is the way that Donald Trump frames the dialogue around it, saying like, build a wall, keep them out. Like, it's just not very civil the way he approaches the problem.
Yeah. Well, one of the things that makes it a big issue is, I think we're being ridiculous with legal immigration. I think that we need to make it much more easier for people, if people want to work. And who cares about lottery and just whoever's coming in, if they're willing to work, if they don't have a criminal record, what's the deal, right?
It should be a simplified system, just like the tax system. If you're going to come in as a seasonal worker for 6 months and then keep it a simple application. If you're trying to sneak in just to come in and get, now I'm probably going to sound like John, but if you're going to just come in and try to get welfare benefits or find some scandalous way to stay here without, you have to make a plan. What am I going to do? Where am I going to live? Which relatives am I going to live by? But if you're coming as an asylum seeker, that's one thing. But if you're coming as a legal or illegal, you still have to have a plan. You can't just land here and just expect the government to take care of you.
Yeah,
I do see
absolutely.
Don on the line,
even a willingness.
too, but I'll let you answer that what I just said before I bring Don in.
Yeah, just a willingness, even. In other countries, if you go there to work, which is, the most ridiculous thing is we're more free with welfare, which is what creates a lot of conflict. Is we'll give welfare, but we won't let people work.
It creates dependency.
So it's let's let people work, be harder up about the welfare, and be more free about letting people get jobs.
And that is a problem, welfare, because when I taught it, Don, I'm going to let you in 10 seconds. When I worked at San Fernando High School, 95% of the kids were second-generation Mexicans, and I'd say about 50% of those kids, their parents were on some form of welfare, whether it was free health care, food stamps, or cash benefits. Now, a lot of the parents worked, even if, some of them were even street vendors, but a lot of the dads had big trucks and worked in construction, but a lot of the moms and dads did menial jobs, and they had to bust their ass to survive, but they still needed some element of the public assistance to make it, especially the health care benefits.
Mm-hmm.
So with that, I'm going to bring Don in. And Don, by the way, Pianki's on hold. The guy from St. Louis who we talk to often. He's been calling in the show on and off for a year and a half. Hi, Don. How are you doing tonight?
Hey, Don.
Hi, good morning, you guys. Beautiful morning, isn't it?
Did you fall asleep after your canvassing job?
Yeah, I was dead tired. I fell asleep, and they had to wake me up to give me dinner, and then you called up or you left a message, and I was like, oh.
I text Pat.
The show was tonight. Yeah, I forgot the show was tonight. So, sorry about that.
Well, I was going to let you know, Don, that we already had a special guest on, Daniel Cendejaz. I used to work with him at Project Grad at San Fernando Middle School and San Fernando High School. So he was pretty much talking about being second-generation Mexican and the first person in his family to graduate college. And his grandparents used to come here as seasonal workers. They never really permanently stayed, but his parents then came as seasonal workers, and they stayed. And he talked for the first 30 minutes of the show. Then we had Pianki on the air, who still he put himself on mute, but he talked for about 15 minutes. And now we have you.
All right, now who's Pianki?
He was the guy from St. Louis.
St. Louis.
He's a Trump supporter, and you've gone toe to toe with him on other shows.
Yeah. Anyway,
okay. Well, anyways, John. Well, we were mainly talking about immigration, but we were also kind of looking fast. I know Wade had something to bring up. He did some kind of research, but he had spoken to one of his friends who works for ICE on the border. So we've already had that conversation. But what is your we're kind of talking about the element of how long this immigration issue is going to be in the forefront of the news, and do you think they're going to carry it out all the way to the 2020 presidential election? Or do you think something else will be significant by that time?
Well, this is an age-old, from the start of the gentrification, if you will, of America. Once it was established, and slaves who were not brought over as immigrants or did not come over as immigrants, after they came, then the immigration word pretty much got its meaning, and with the Italians and Jewish and some of the other, the Polish and stuff like that coming over, they were the slaves, but they were immigrants.
Are you talking about the waves of civilization, like how the Italians and the Irish came over in the 1880s?
Yeah, American, exactly. But they were blue-eyed, blonde-haired, just like the Norwegians you guys mentioned, the doggone Canadian border. And me personally, I don't give a shit if we put up a border around Mexico, but we better damn well put up a border around Canada. Right now, if you the numbers are shifting considerably. There aren't as many Mexican, until 6 months ago. There weren't as many, the numbers of Mexican immigration seekers was declining. They were below the 50% mark. There were fewer people coming in, and there were fewer people leaving. There were fewer people coming in than there were leaving. But now the numbers for the Mexico border and the Canadian border of illegal immigrants is almost is closing in to be the same. So if our goofball president is got enough gumption to continue to ask for a wall, even though he's purposefully contaminating all the talks, he's going against law by separating families and children, and doing things that are immoral, and the evangelicals should want to, strand him up by his balls. But this guy is doing all these things that are just terrible And
are you saying the Christians are going to reject his separation of families?
They should. The Christians, they're not Christian. They're not Christians anymore. They're devil worshippers. The evangelicals who are running around here proselytizing
you should clarify that, John. You're talking. You can't say that as a lump statement. There's a lot of Christians are not politically active. Only the ones who are politically active are like that.
Yeah, but they're not Christians. They're believing in man dogma. They believe that you've got, and I'm sorry to say this because I know you're a devout Lutheran, but you've got people like Luther, and you've got John Smith and all these people. They're men. They came out and they started talking about a form or concept of a Christ, but they're not really talking about Christ. They're talking about themselves.
Well, my church is the type to take in refugees and homeless people. So it's not my church who behaves like that.
No, you're talking about Unitarian Universalists, all these people. They are godless. I mean, your church is godless. It's just that
my church?
Yes, because they quantify
not my church.
My God, your church is the devil worshiper, honey.
Don, you know what? You're talking out of your ass. Just because Luther, just because the Lutheran Church was founded by Luther, who all he wanted to do is get away from the Catholic stranglehold of having the priests make all the decisions.
Exactly.
That has nothing to do with the modern day Lutheran Church.
Yes, it does, because what's happening is the whole course.
You don't even go to church.
I don't care because it's long.
You could at least go to Jesse. You could at least go to Al Sharpton's church.
I went to Catholic university, and I learned all that that I needed to know. I almost got a theology minor. The thing is that religion, these people are preaching under the auspices of God, under the name of God. They don't believe in God.
You know what?
They believe in themselves. They believe in themselves.
Okay, we're going to change the subject, and I'll tell you why. I'm a believer. Every church has their own preacher, and you don't have the right to judge the legitimacy of those preachers. Maybe you can criticize the overall concept of the style of preaching from each denomination, but you don't know what it's like inside every single church.
Oh no, I don't.
There's a wide spectrum.
Yeah, there's a
For
wide
example,
spectrum.
my church accepts gays and the reconciliation of gay ministry. Now, I'm not necessarily
against the Bible. Against the Bible.
You know what? I'm not for having like gay pastors and stuff, but I think everybody, even if you classify being gay as a sin, everybody has to reconcile themselves to God individually. So I don't think it's my place on earth to judge gay people, just like it's not my place to judge alcoholics, cocaine users, or men who cheat on their wives. So I'm not going to judge. There's like a lot of people call Mormonism a cult, but that doesn't mean that all Mormons are doing bad in the world. A lot of them go out of their way to do positive social services for people in the community.
What they're doing. I'm not saying their activity. I'm saying their dogma, their doctrine, their theology is wrong. I'm not saying these people are wrong. I'm saying that in all actuality, the Anglican Church is one of the 13 abominations that will be destroyed by the apocalypse. I'm saying that the churches, many of the churches, are devil worshiping cults. That's not what I'm saying about the people.
Well, the Anglican Church is out of England.
Whatever. They're freaking going to be destroyed by Jesus when he comes and returns, in his many forms. This is
okay.
This is what is
I can accept that, but I still think we should get back on topic because you joined us late.
Right. And
So
the bottom line is that the Canadians,
I'm going to propose a new question to you and Wade. So, Wade, you grew up in Southern California. Don grew up in the Midwest.
Mm-hmm.
Do you think that...
I spent a lot of time in Southern California.
Okay, Don. So people like us, like me, Don and Wade and John Yoder, who've been around all different cultures, like we look at someone of another race and we don't automatically say, oh, they're Spanish, they must be on the welfare system. Like John's probably the only one who does that. But what I'm trying to say is that some of the Spanish people have been here longer than the white people. Like Spain, the Spanish, they founded, in 1545, they founded California. So do you think our country is going to stay divided based on racial division and presumptions about other races? Or is there going to be some middle ground that's going to be achieved by 2020 between people who don't really like Trump but also maybe don't really like the left? Like, how about all these independents? Are they going to be able to find a way to come together and not keep classifying people in political vitriol terms? Wade, why don't you go since you haven't said much tonight?
Sure. We're going to have to work at that. That's a problem. You know, we've got groups that keep trying to make it about race, and I mean, by 2020, no, things won't change that much.
On both sides. Yeah,
on both sides. But hopefully, like, you know, eventually, I think the issues will die down. Like you mentioned, like a lot of the Spanish were here before the white people, which means like a lot of my family and stuff. Like also, you know, we came kind of late, some of us from Germany, and so we weren't involved in a lot of the crap that was going on here. Yeah.
My grandma got here in 1902. When did your family get here?
It depends on which group, but I think around the turn of the century, somewhere in there.
Like the early 1900s?
Yeah, my great-grandmother on my dad's paternal side still had a German accent. So that she was pretty new, but yeah, that also means it's like, you know,
my ex-husband's had a German accent.
Yeah, but that also means, I mean, when stereotypes go, it's like, well, yeah, my family came from like a totally different place. We weren't involved in all this stuff that was going on. So, yeah, I just really want to see us, like, you know, we've got to just stop letting people run the conversation that want to divide everybody by race, and it's very frustrating.
I hope that in 2020 somebody gets elected who is more like a Mitt Romney type, where they're just kind of in the center, but not constantly divisive on every single issue and not larger than life. Because I see Donald Trump kind of. I did a speech last week. I see Donald Trump kind of like Madonna. Like, he's always larger than life. He's one time Mick Jagger said that Madonna was like P.T. Barnum. She was the biggest self-promoter since P.T. Barnum. And I want somebody who's not like, has such a large personality that he overshadows the room, or she. And I noticed that the Democrats are trying to get Kamala Harris and another woman I never heard of as to be a front runner in the 2020 election. But I hope somebody like Cory Booker runs too. And I'm sad to say it, but I don't really want anybody old, like super old.
I'm okay. I mean, old means their experience, though. You know, old has life experience.
I just don't want somebody over
wisdom.
65. I love Bernie Sanders. He's always got the best people's interests at mind. But I just think, you know, if you're over 75, it's a risk to have someone that old be our president.
Young people are a risk too. They, you know, immaturity and I mean, the young people are the ones that have usually the radical political views and want to go beat people up and have street brawls and, you know, like, not the older people. Actually, I'd like to see Ben Shapiro, and he's pretty young, and he doesn't.
I know who he is.
He doesn't play blue. Yeah, he doesn't play blue versus red team.
Isn't he an economist?
I think he studied. He studied. He was a law student, but he does talk a lot about the economy, and he is consistently against identity politics. Consistently, he will not. He will speak out against whoever, against Antifa or against the alt-right or whoever's playing identity. He'll be like, no, enough of this. And he makes the point. It's like, your argument is right or wrong. What matters is your argument. It doesn't matter what you are. It matters what you look at the argument. And so that's good. That's what I want. Like, let's judge people, like Martin Luther King said, by the character of their hearts.
Content of their character.
And he'd be like the first Jewish president.
We lost you, Don.
No, I'm right here. What?
Okay, I'm
trying to keep quiet from this opaque conversation. This conversation.
Okay, well, I didn't like how you attacked the church. We have enough attacks on our institutions.
I attack these weirdos who go around talking about life in terms of the church. Half of your doggone serial killers are doing it because God told them to. So do you think that they should be let go and just roam around willy-nilly? God told them to kill these people. So, you got your military. You tell them, first thing, your prayers in the morning, we got to go out, and God told us to kill 600 people. Children, women, everything. Dogs, cats, God told us to do this. So you are supporting what God says, and he's saying kill. I've mentioned before, there are only three things that the Bible says, and that is that the Bible covers, and that's prayer, celebration, and war. So I don't know what.
And you haven't read the Bible probably since college, because there's a lot more to it than that.
No, that's what I was taught in college, in the Catholic college.
Yeah, you were taught that, but the fact of the matter is that there's Isaiah, who has special prophecy. There's Ecclesiastes that talks about the meaning of life. There's Matthew, the Gospels, the life of Jesus, the Revelation, the end times. There's Paul's letters to the early churches. There's the first 5 books of the Bible are the laws of Moses and how people are supposed to live. There's genealogy.
That's all part of prayer and celebration. That's all of how you're supposed to live your life in prayer and celebration, in reverence of a God and Jesus Christ as a Christian.
But there's also history in the Bible.
Well, that's all a part of celebration.
We're still getting off topic.
I don't know what the topic was. The doggone. I mean, this is so vanilla.
Immigration and growing up Mexican.
I know that there will never be any kind of answer for that, because there is a segment of society. There are pale, little dick white men who just simply do not want to give up power. They simply want to continue evil and war and fighting, and that's the way they live. That's the way they're used to living all throughout history. And there has never, I don't believe, ever been a time in the white man's history that he hasn't been at war. Ever. There has never been
a time of
fight. There has never been a time of enlightenment. And,
I disagree with that totally. There was the age of Aquarius in the 60s.
When was the Islamic world not at war?
When the moon was in the second sun and Jupiter aligned with Mars.
And then we were in Vietnam. It
was a wake-up call. That's when the clashes.
We were having 1,000 people a day. 1,000 people a day, Americans dying.
Wait.
And
that's when the young started challenging the people who were running this country. They challenged the authority figures who were the warmongers.
Right.
You were 8 years old when it started.
Right, and I reaped the benefits because I was free enough to be able, and believe me, I was saying this stuff at 13 and 14 that adults were talking about. But we were had the freedom, the real freedom to tell everybody where to go, to kiss our ass. And coming from Wisconsin, you already know about the Milwaukee 14 and all those other, the guys who Ayers and I'm trying to remember the guys who
Gregory,
Bernadette Dorn and her accomplice who bombed Madison and
John's been on the phone 2 minutes. Don, I don't mind you bringing up the element. Okay, I'm just going to say one thing before I let John in. I don't mind you bringing up the archaicness of, I guess you could call it the old school church, where the church is kind of like a structure that holds society together, but it doesn't have any fire, and it's just to keep people in line. But you're not aware of the hippie church movement of the 70s that brought more. It was almost like a movement where it kind of was a re-enlightenment of the church, and there is a real church. There's a church movement today that's active, and it's not just the crony evangelists who are shaming gays and abortion people. There's a real movement of people helping each other. That because you're so busy with politics and your community events, you're probably not that exposed to it.
All I know is that they're red. Those churches that you're talking about right now are red. We have just a couple of churches that the teachers let their parishioners out to be free, to say what they.
And you're right. Some church dogma is screwed up, but not all.
Right.
But I am going to let John on the phone because he's better at arguing with you than I am.
Oh, no.
Wait. I do have to make a comment, though. Wade and I have been on the air 74 minutes. So if you and John are going to argue another half hour, I might fade out a little.
How can we argue? But he hasn't even been on the phone yet.
Because I know you two, and you're both long-winded. And by the way, it's 12:14 in Minnesota. It's past my Lutheran bedtime.
Exactly. He's gonna
After all, how does a monastic Lutheran Lutheran who doesn't have sex, how can she stay up past 12:30?
Right, well, you're drinking Kool-Aid.
Hi, John. You're on the air.
Hey, John.
Hello, Jane Hoffman. How are you today?
I'm trying to fight with Don, but my knuckles don't fit through the phone.
I love Don. Don needs a hug.
I had a long day at work. I've been talking to all the politicians in the state because we had John Sessions here today.
Jeff Sessions or John Sessions?
Jeff Sessions. And we also had our state convention this weekend, so we were able to talk to Elizabeth Warren and Catherine Cortez.
Are you kidding me? Lucky
Why would I kid you? I do this every day. That's why I can tell you for sure that what I say is right, because I'm dealing with the biggest people in the world all the time. And I know what they say, and I get in their ass for saying it. I have no problem telling them they're wrong, and they've got to change their plank or philosophies.
Their mantra?
Their mantra, or else they're going to lose
what the hell is
or
Jeff
Y.
Sessions doing? What the hell is Jeff Sessions doing at a Democratic convention?
It's not a Democratic convention. He was at the school safety, National School Safety convention. And so he came in and he talked, apparently talked about an hour. And for 20 minutes, he talked about school safety. 15, 20 minutes, he talked about school safety. And for the rest of it, he talked about ancillary problems like immigration. So that's apparently.
I'd rather have you talk about that than your viewpoints on Martin Luther.
No, I mean, he didn't quote any Bible verses. So we were glad of that. But I was not inside. I was outside with the protesters. And, of course, I'm on TV again today like I normally am. But this is something that we would, I do these. That's what I do. I'm out working with For Our Future, which is a super PAC. So, I've got to deal with everybody. And I'm the best one to do it.
Cool.
I come out with
We know you're good at some things, just not religion.
Oh man, I'm better at religion than you think.
Okay, well, at the end of the show, when it's your time for your conclusion, you can give us a 3-minute sermon. So,
Go for it.
John, what's on your mind tonight?
Oh, there was a subject at the very beginning in the synopsis. What transpired the first 74 minutes?
One of my friends, Daniel Cendejaz, is on the air. He's a rapper from LA. You talked to him before on another show, but we didn't cover his music tonight. We covered his experience as a second-generation Mexican, the first college graduate from his family, and what his parents and grandparents' journey was like. And then we had Pinonki on the show, who's actually still listening, from Missouri, the conservative Trump supporter who pitched in for 20 minutes. And then Wade, the next 20 minutes, Wade talked about his friend or relative who works for ICE and what the reality is on the border. And then Don called in, and we argued about religion, and then he just did another thing on what was going on in Nevada today.
Well, it sounds like you're covering most of the bases, actually.
Well,
yeah, we've already had 5 or 6 people on the show tonight.
Argue. Quit saying the word argue.
Discussing.
Debate. Discuss.
Don, I'm sorry.
We're passionately
you just ruffled my feathers a little bit tonight. I'm sorry.
Well, that's the purpose of it.
I still love you, Don, and I'm still coming out there this summer sometime.
Well, I still love you, too, even though you don't understand what a thing I was saying.
I do understand. You think that the European white church originated out of people who were deceivers.
Well, it's not just European white church. This could be out of Russia. This could be out of China. It could be almost anything. I mean, we're talking about Buddha. Buddha is considered a religion, and he was a man. He was a man. They didn't even believe he was a god. That's how stupid Buddhism is, but it's a religion.
The reason I don't like discussing the church with you, Don, is because I grew up in the church from age 1964 on, and there's a lot of good things the church does in America. In fact, I mentioned on the show that Chick-fil-A, which is a conservative Christian food chain, they fed all the gay families after that Pulse mass killing in Florida a few years ago. Like, the church, the Southern Baptists are the first on the scene for every disaster, even though the American Red Cross claims to be. And the church does a lot of good in the world. They're the ones probably helping at the border right now with the whole situation.
Yeah, well, the bottom
in
line
fact,
is
the Catholic Church they've been taking in refugees from Central America since the early 80s, the Catholic Church, and having sanctuary holdings on those people.
Yeah, well, the Baptists are first on hand to help mass shootings because it's probably Baptists that did the shooting. They're responsible for it. You know, I'm still working on.
That was the guy who killed at the Pulse Studios was somebody from a Middle Eastern background. I'm pretty sure.
Yeah, I don't even.
Yeah, what about?
Remember his
what
wife
about the
knew
Islamic
about it and she was going to be held accountable?
Attack?
Go ahead.
Yeah, well, what about the Islamic terrorist attacks? I mean, do we let them off the hook, or
is Muhammad God? There you go, another religion based on man. This is what the problem is.
Well, that is the problem. I'll agree with you on that because Muhammad took the Jewish teachings and co-opted them into his own benefit from the family of Ishmael.
Right.
But what happens, though?
Not the only one who did it.
All right. Because people, you know, the people that want power and the people that want to be destructive and do evil are going to use whatever excuse they can get a hold of, and they're going to use what's popular. So the biggest mass murders in history, I mean, overwhelming, huge killings happened in the communist under the communist dictators, and Stalin and Mao. And people say, well, that doesn't count. You know, well, yes, it does, because they're, you know, they were very clear about their atheism and their unbelief in God, and it was their ideology, it was their life perspective that pushed them to commit all these murders.
During that regime, if you didn't conform, you were dead meat.
Exactly, and the Catholics, and nobody killed more Indians, whether it's north or south of the border, than the Spanish, Catholics, and the Mormons. The Mormons killed more indigenous than anybody, and so I didn't hear that.
The Spanish killed a lot of people in Mexico, like the they killed a lot of people who were not of any religious origin. They were natives.
That's what I said. They killed more people. I didn't say anything about killing religious people. The Spanish Catholics and the Mormons have killed more people of minority descent in America than anybody, and that includes
I heard that anything in history. I don't know what the statistics are, but I've heard that like the killings of like Stalin and Mao outdid like anything else in history by far. I don't know.
And it was
I could be wrong, but that's what I heard.
Like Stalin, if the peasants didn't conform to his farm policies, or like Stalin killed over 60,000 peasants in the countryside who weren't even a real threat.
Yeah, I mean that doesn't excuse what the Catholics did, of course, but you know, just
and also,
they're all
even modern day. Putin's killed. He blew up an apartment building in Moscow to try to hide it under some. He was trying to make the Chechens look bad, so he blew up an apartment building and blamed it on the Chechens. I can't say their names.
You see where Chechnya. Right, Chechens. But there's evidence that he blew up the plane. The plane that was I forgot the doggone 74, something like that. But he blew up the plane now that they say that was going over the Ukraine. Or, you know, so these people are ruthless. That was the Russian army under Putin that did that.
I know what you're talking about. Yeah.
Right.
So, John, you're kind of quiet tonight.
No, we haven't let him talk. Go ahead, John, talk.
Oh, I was absorbing it. Well, I guess here's a question. Since apparently most of the killings of the world are from white males that are power. If we were
I don't know.
take
Well, he
white,
also mentioned China, John.
and Islamic places.
So
China had a whole lot of people to kill. They did a good job.
So if we got rid of the Asians and the white male population, would inner city murders of black people, with homicide, would those rates go down since they would have no need to kill at a very high rate, higher rates than whites and Asians do?
It would go down because the white man oppressor wouldn't be oppressing blacks anymore.
I think this is human nature. I don't think murderousness comes with a race. I don't believe.
I just said that to throw John off a few feet.
All right, cool.
Okay, wait. I'm going to let you handle this question. I'm going on a potty break.
Sure. What's the question?
The question is if we got rid of the Chinese and white killers, would the black people in inner cities kill less?
Sorry, but I think no. I don't. I think you take any race out, and it's not going to change.
What in the world does that question have to do with anything? First of all, black killings in the inner cities are a reflection of the greater culture. We see, when I say we, I'm talking about blacks and minorities in the inner city. We see how the animalistic behavior of the whites is. They're animals. They're savages. And,
I think it's the people.
Wrong.
It's a little bigoted. I think it's the world as a whole. I mean, you've got plenty of killing in Africa, too, and Asia.
Yeah, exactly. But a lot of that has been learned, especially killing one person of a culture, killing another person of the same culture. That's not if it's not a civil war, that's not normal behavior anywhere in the world. And it's a learned behavior for someone to kill someone of the same race, especially in another culture. That doesn't. It's not logical, and it doesn't happen until somebody learns that from someone else. And we've seen the ease in which a man of certain color would kill his brother, and there would be no compunction whatsoever as it being immoral. In fact, the judges condone keeping that man out of prison because the population is growing smaller all over the world, and they need as many men, able-bodied, baby-making men as possible.
Just about every culture in the world has had killing even before other people knew about each other. People, usually it's for land, it's for territory, it's, this guy has what I want, and I mean, what about the Aztec sacrifices? And, they didn't learn, they didn't even have contact with Europe and Asia to learn that.
But you just said it, sacrifices. That was different. That was killing for the sacrifice of the blessings of a god. So that's totally different than killing, than homicide for property or personal use or adultery or whatever.
Well, that goes back to the God told me to, and I think that's just an excuse. I mean, a lot of these sacrifices were after wars. We're still, it's still killing people.
Oh, yeah, you're killing people, but every killing is different. Virtually every killing is different, or has a different motive or different reason or different, method. So it's something that, in terms of killing, there are different reasons for killing.
Yeah.
Well, do we have any examples worldwide? Do we have any examples of a African American, of any kind of shall I say, let's see, I guess of African heritage, any nation that has a good model of efficiency, of fairness, and of prosperity as a culture that we can model in today's world. Like example, Nairobi, Sudan, Nigeria, Namibia.
You're talking about Africa. Africa has been inculcated with apartheid violence, where Africans who are just sitting on the side of a road get killed for being on the side of the road. Where you've got diamond workers who are expendable, who are still in the mines when they close and shut down and blow up the entrance to the mine. They already know they're in there. So, Africa has been through a different, as the cradle of civilization, as the start of the world. Africa has a longer history than anybody else, with the strongest leaders. Of course, everybody knows how I feel. Africans, blacks are the biggest, fastest, strongest, and smartest people on earth by far.
Right. So currently today, with all the superior strength and knowledge and history, have they been able to overcome the white oppression and basically show the world that despite all these disadvantages, they're actually the stronger, superior race to enlighten the rest of us? Is there an example that you could discuss with us that would enlighten us?
That's why I'm here, John. I'm one of those.
So let me get this straight. You're driving for Uber, living in Nevada, and with your family, your beautiful family, and we are to model your example that is a successful nation or country?
Pretty much.
Okay, just want to make sure.
If you say that they're the best, smartest, top people, you're welcome to have that point of view, but you can't get upset if, like, say, a white person or an Asian person has the perspective that their people are that way too.
You've never heard an Asian person say they were the biggest, fastest, and strongest, and smartest person on earth. But bottom line,
I've heard people think they're the best. And, white people get in huge trouble if they say that, so you don't tend to hear that.
That's because they know they're wrong.
I understand the average American IQ is 98. The average, and of course, there could be variances, but this is pretty. It's almost set in stone. Chinese average IQ is 105. The average Korean IQ is 106. The average IQ from Haiti is 67. The average Mexican IQ is 88. Now, there are those who say better education and methods, IQ, your experience, your culture. The last several generations, they've tried to kick up these scores with more money into education programs, and unfortunately, IQ budge much. Maybe a point or two. No one's figured out a way to pump. If your parents have a low IQ and you have a low IQ, they haven't been figured out a way for the next couple generations to bump it up to speed.
That's why it's inaccurate. The IQ test is totally inaccurate because it's from a white man's point of view. The reason that these the different cultures have so much lower IQ rates is because the questions that are in the IQ tests pertain to information that they are culturally ignorant to. I believe that some of the questions, a couple of questions, are things like, what would you do on a yacht or something like that. People from Haiti may know what a yacht is, but people from the middle of, Idaho, some Idaho indigenous, they don't have the faintest idea what a yacht is. you've got questions that are specifically bigoted towards one segment of society, just because they were written by that segment of society. And the reason that those scores were so different is because the people that are being tested don't know what the hell they're talking about.
So how do you prove to people the superiority of Africans?
All you have to do is talk to them. They're wise. They're elegant in their elaboration of what life is all about. And they do have they may not have computers and TVs and stuff, but they sure know how to count fast when it comes down to, the fiduciary responsibilities. They can count as fast as anybody in the world. They are just as ambidextrous and business-minded.
No, that's just Don's subjective belief system. It's not a wild.
Yeah, that's not.
Africans don't have businesses, so Africans don't have businesses.
It's his belief system, Wade. It's not a fact.
That's not measurable. Well, I mean, I've talked to people of African descent, and some of them have been really wise. Some of them have been really wise and really smart, and some of them have been very much not so. And the same thing for talking to Asians and white people. I've met really brilliant people of all different races and really foolish people of all different races. I don't, in my personal, so if we're just going off of personal experience and just talking to people, I don't see one group being way superior to another. And it's compassion too. I've seen compassionate people of all races. I've seen really hateful people of all races. I don't see a distinction.
Don holds that belief, and it's okay for him to believe that. I do think blacks are superior in race across the board. I can say that if I want, but it doesn't make any. It's not a game changer. It's not going to make any of us get along better.
I mean,
right,
the individuals.
Have you ever played a sport and been in the locker room? You'll see how superior blacks
are. Let's just say everybody in America believed blacks were superior. Maybe at that point they would rule with a stronger mandate. There would be less chaos. I think Don has a basic. Don, you have a basic resentment towards whites because they've exploited people. That's what your main premise is.
But it's not a resentment. It's not a resentment. It's a despair. I would like to see white people grow up to their potential. I would like to see them do the right thing, be a godly, soulful.
And many white people are. You just haven't met them.
You got to give them a chance too.
I know a lot of compassionate whites. They go overseas. They're in NGOs. They feed people in war-torn countries. They stay in tents in the Turkish-Syrian border for a year, denying their own physical needs. There's a lot of good white people.
All right. Well, I'm not bashing. I'm not trying to bash them. I'm trying to.
You are.
Know that. I'm trying to say that they need to comport themselves in a manner where their entitlement rights aren't overwhelming to everything else, where they think that they are all that a bag of chips.
I agree. I agree that there's elements of our society that have driven the white agenda to manufacture.
Make everybody hate us.
A pseudo belief that white people are superior. It's more of a accessibility and of privilege, where white people are automatically accepted into certain colleges because of maybe family connections. It's true, but I don't really want to end the show on a note like that.
Well, I did want to ask the question. Now, the the latest statistics come out, we're not talking like 50 years ago. The average score on
John,
an
your
SAT,
kids are too loud. Okay? The kids are too loud in the background.
All right. I'm moving right now.
Okay. Okay, go ahead, John.
Oh, John?
John, go ahead.
Oh, okay.
John.
Do you hear me?
You're cutting off. I can hear you a little bit.
Can you hear me now?
Yeah.
We can hear you now.
The average score for an Asian on an SAT, latest statistics, 5.8. Yeah.
You're cutting out, John, and it's too late to call back in.
Right.
You're going to have to maybe put it on speaker.
The average score for an Asian on an SAT is 598. The average score for a white person is 547, mid 500. The average score for a Mexican is 450, in the mid 400s. The average score for an African American is 428. That's in the low 400s. Now, Asians come from, a lot of Asians come into our country. African Americans and Hispanics have been in the country for the last 200 or 300 years. So again, these are tests that everyone takes. Everyone goes to the same school. Everyone has the same TV, MTV, the culture, music to listen to. Why is there a 30-some% difference? 25 minimum difference in the scores. In other words, if you're going to talk facts and statistics,
the question to you is why does it matter? Because I'll just give you an example. I watched 6 seasons of Gossip Girl twice. There's an episode in there where they all go to an elite private school. They all got filthy rich parents. It's about rich Upper East Siders, and they're all cramming for the SAT. 2 of them end up cheating. 1 of them sends a phony person in to take the test, and 3 or 4 of them actually take the test and they study. The thing is some of those kids will go off to Ivy League colleges or maybe Columbia University and get a better degree. But in the real world, it's all about connections. Like, even if you graduate from an Ivy League school, you're still going to get a job at a law firm or a business where you know somebody. It's not based on your test score. So who cares?
So Jane, you're saying that tests to measure intelligence or scholastic ability isn't important? And are you saying that the majority then of kids...
It's important for people who go to college.
Your statement there is that, well, you have to measure... Do you have to have some kind of standard to measure who gets into college?
Yes. You have to pass the ACT or if you don't get above it, I think it's... Let's just say you get a 600 on your ACT and somebody else gets a 300. If a college only has a certain number of vacancies, you're not going to get in if your score is low.
Right. Okay. And then based on that, you just made the statement that some kids got into school or college because they cheated. So are you saying that the majority of kids cheat to get the higher scores?
No, they don't cheat. It was an episode on a TV show. I'd say 1 or 2% cheat, but
so you see that example.
Why is this relevant to the conversation? I think what you're indirectly trying to say that people who grow up in the inner city are going to be dumb. They can't achieve like whites and Asians, so therefore you're stereotyping. But you're forgetting all the black people. You're forgetting all the black people who have accomplished something, who get accepted at Harvard and Yale, and I feel like you're stereotyping.
Jane,
both of you guys are wrong. Both of you guys are wrong because the colleges are cheating. There wouldn't have been affirmative action if it wasn't for the cheating. The colleges are right now being sued left and right by Asians because they're cheating. They're not letting them in with higher test scores than the whites. This is cheating. It's always
because
cheating.
It's
Or the blacks or Hispanics.
Right. It's reverse discrimination. But going back to your point, Jane, you just stated that I said that minorities are dumb. I pointed out that certain groups of people have higher test scores than other groups because we were having a logical discussion. Someone made the statement that a certain group of people, African Americans, are smarter and more talented and physically more able than other races. So I went to
which is also stereotyping.
I went to a very logical. I didn't say anyone was dumb or stupid. I just said a certain group has higher test scores, and the group that was being lauded as being superior had the lowest scores. So I'm trying to figure out what measurement do you use to indicate us that your premise is accurate, and why do you
scores are based on wrong information, John. The tests are invalid.
Okay, so my question is, what test do you have, Don, to substantiate your point that we can use as a model? Yeah, I'm asking. I'm not making sense. I'm asking you.
No, I have some
I need help.
But
I'm half white and half brown, and I'm not in a sense. So I need information to help my limited understanding.
The word is exposure. The word is the ability to go out into the world and experience life. These minorities don't get a chance to do that at the same rate that whites do. Whites travel; they have an opportunity to be entertained and hosted at different hotels, restaurants. They have that opportunity.
And that gives you a better SAT score? So if I like I had a better test score than others. I didn't.
Filet mignon.
We weren't rich.
If you have some Mexican or Indian, would you rather have a piece of filet mignon or a piece of steak? They would probably say steak because nobody knows that filet mignon is a part of steak. They wouldn't know that. They don't have the faintest idea. But whites have that need to distinguish every little micro bit.
And now we're stereotyping.
Yes, we are. The side of the left part of the shank of the bull is, of the cow is filet mignon, and steak is just the rest of the cow. That's how it's been taught to everybody. And that's a stereotype.
We had special programs and monies put into helping disadvantaged and minorities, especially in poor cities, since the 60s. So no one's been able to figure out that they just need to have a program of people to mentor or teach them. This will, as you would think, then if we just assign people, you figured this out, so if you assign people to teach these kids filet mignon versus steak, they're going to do higher on their test scores. No one's, what do they do in school? They don't spend time showing them, this is going to be an SAT. These are the questions you're going to have, study and do well. That's kind of what they told me in school, just study and, prepare. There's no one's doing this in the school for the minorities?
T and IQ tests are different. Let's get that straight. IQs are strictly for IQ, the intelligence quotient, how people view what they view the world. SATs are from learned or theoretically understood information. So those are a little different. They have different methodologies and different reasons, different purposes for developing.
This is Blog Talk Radio. You have 10 minutes left. This is Blog Talk Radio. You have 10 minutes left.
We only have 10 minutes left.
All right. So
we're going to cut.
There's a difference. All I'm saying is the things that you're talking about can't be quantified because there are different cultural environments in which people are taught. And not everybody is taught the same in their cultural environment. That's all I'm saying. history books are wrong.
John's
but I don't see any proof that one group
accidentally. Go ahead, Wade.
I mean, that just leaves us with no proof about anybody being superior. I don't understand why that's an important question. Like, I'm not even interested in whether whites are inferior or superior. I'm sure different racial groups have different abilities and different weaknesses. To me, like, I care about what individuals are. I care about if this individual is a good person to get to know or not. That's what matters to me.
The thing about John is that, and I'm not trying to criticize him, but he brings up similar arguments every episode. And in my theory, or in my personal theory, theorizing, I think that he's trying to display that certain elements of the white and Asian race are superior academically. But a lot of it has to do, like in Japan, where they have 10 hours of school and they teach like 5- and 6-year-olds 3 hours of math a day. Maybe
culture.
Maybe there is a worship. Maybe we can admire the Japanese culture for doing that. But even like Wade just said, it doesn't determine their value as a person. Like, okay, let's say 50% of the Japanese can do twice as much math as an 8th grader in America. So what? It's all it's going to do is get them into a better college. They still have to socialize. They still have to be part of a community and culture. Just being smart isn't the end-all and be-all. Like, what does that really measure? And maybe they will be a professor at a university teaching math the rest of their life, but he's not providing us a solution, saying that this is how we're going to help kids who are suffering. How are we going to help kids who are suffering and not getting the right education?
I don't see why we need to.
Wade, that's an entitled way of thinking, because there is a reason, or else nobody would have this discussion. Would be moot, but it's not moot because there is a need to understand the direction of where we're going from where we're at now and from what we've done in the past.
But just saying white people are all bad, every single one of them, what good does that do? How does that further? How does that make us work better and become better? And I mean, don't you need to believe in people? And
you have to bring humility back into it. Godly.
Well, yeah, and some people are.
And a lot of people.
But Don, you do have white friends, and you even have white friends who are in the NAACP.
Well, my grandma was a Creole, so I've got white blood running through me, and I got, from what I understand, Indian blood running through me.
Okay, but if they're all bad people, your friends are bad. They're all bad, right?
Well, I can't say my friends are bad, but I can't say they're perfect either.
Well, they're white, so.
Yeah, well,
but you're saying white people are uniquely. You're saying white people are uniquely bad, and I see violence going around all over the world. And don't you have to believe in people to, you said you want white people to do better. Well, then believe they can, and believe that some of them do.
You can believe in people. You can be friends with people. You don't have to trust people. Trust no one is one of my major mantras. I trust myself.
Okay.
Because I know that I'm the full package. I've made it this far without having to worry about guns or religion per se. I believe in God, but I don't necessarily believe in organized religion. I've never, I've never had a physical confrontation besides my wife in my life. And, you get through that by knowing how to traverse life. But those people who don't know, they're the ones who are uncomfortable and disgraceful and have no self-esteem.
Don, I agree with your statement that black people know how to enjoy life more.
And that's the one.
A lot of white people are caught up with careers and making money.
Right.
And And I have two family members
good.
who are manic about. I'm a workaholic, and both of my sisters are workaholics.
Right, and you guys make a little bit of money, but are you happy? And that's one of the things that blacks can say, that no matter what situation they're in, they could be outside on the porch or they can be in jail. They're still going to be happy. They're not going to take around, and this is primarily black men, because a lot of black women want the money. They love the creature comforts. They're having their dresses and their hair done and driving in nice cars. Black men, they don't give a fuck. All we want to do is fuck. That's it.
Don, don't say that on the air.
All right, I won't
okay,
say that on the air.
You're getting in trouble.
Wade is just getting used to you, so don't freak him out. But
no,
you guys.
Okay, but I mean, I have my opinions too.
We have 5 more minutes.
Yeah.
We have 5 more minutes tops, and then I'm going to play a song and end the show. So you and Don.
I mean, that's sure. One thing I observe is it's really like I see a lot more people on the left making racial stereotypes. Like people on the right just don't think in those terms. Like I guess you could say it's privilege, but stereotypes aren't always true. I mean, you can't always say white people are always like this, black people are always like this. There's all kinds of distinctions.
But see, that's the whole point, is that when you're more or less a liberal, and you are walking around like we were just getting ready to talk about, the fact that the whole difference in the races in the world are that minorities have melanin. Melanin is a calming hormone, if you will, and it allows people to relax and be themselves. The liberals walk around and they call each other what could be considered bad names all the time. You know, they're always joking about somebody being a fag or somebody being, a hag or somebody being an addict or whatever, but they're either enjoying it themselves or they are actually jealous of the fact that they're jealous of the fact that they would like to enjoin in that kind of behavior. So that's where you might feel that it's a difference in cultures, because the liberals are more than comfortable saying what they feel. They are human beings.
But then they get more angry when people say what they feel. Like, I can talk about being superior and you're inferior. Oh, how dare you say I'm inferior and you're superior? Oh my gosh! Like, there's hypocrisy. Like, I see that.
That's only when people feel that way. If people feel actually superior, and somebody is saying, "Oh, you feel superior," and they say, "Yeah," there's nothing you can say.
Yeah. Yeah.
And it's not about anger. It's not about getting back at revenge at people or anything like that. It's about the reality that a person feels that way, and if you push them far enough and they stay resolved in that situation, then you got to give them the fact that they feel that way. And superiority that's an understatement for the way I used to feel about me. And anybody can try to change my mind and argue with me. It's so funny because they all often tried to argue me down, and throughout my life, they used in college at Catholic college, they called me professor, my fellow peers, because they know they can't generally, if they listen to me logically, there are very few arguments about anything that people can put over on me. And that's just something I learned. It's something I accept. And, I don't try to boast about it or put people down about it. I just know. And so you know, and you just keep on going with life. It's no big deal.
So how do you feel if a white person thinks they're superior?
I'll either engage them, or they'll say the most stupid phrase that ever existed, which is, "Oh, let's agree to disagree." That's a worthless piece of shit white person who says that because they don't feel like engaging mentally. They don't, they can't do it. It's like the brain freeze for people who can't do math. They just don't do it, and they say, "Oh, that's made for somebody else." And they can do it if they work at it. If they understand that the minorities and the melanin that minorities have brings out the love. There's the souls of people. The pineal gland. The rich white people know that if they can put the pineal gland and minorities into their body, they can not only live longer, have softer, more pliant, less wrinkly skin. They can have feelings of actual emotional feeling for other people. And this is something that if you ask any rich white person, they will they'll tell you that the melanin and the pineal gland in minorities is what they crave, and that's ultimately what they crave, and they can't get it, so they determine that money, the acquisition of things, is equal to, or in their case, superior to the fact that people have genuine feeling.
Well, I don't think you know what it's like to be in the head of a... Oh, I think that's the end of the show.
Yeah, the show's ending now. Thanks for calling in, you guys. Have a great night.
Sure.
Okay?
All right, you bet.
Wait.
Good night, Don. Thanks for your input. Good night, Don.